The council chamber floated in the darkness between galaxies, a massive structure built from materials that predated most civilizations. Inside the circular hall, thousands of holographic figures flickered into existence. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered for an emergency session, something that happened only once every few centuries. At the center of the chamber stood the elders. These ancient beings had witnessed the birth and death of countless star systems. Their forms were difficult to look at directly, shifting between states of matter as if reality itself couldn't quite hold them. Today they had called this meeting, and their presence alone told everyone that something terrible was about to happen. Elder Keeper Vothram moved forward, his voice echoing through every mind in the chamber without sound. In his hands he carried a sphere roughly the size of a human head. It pulsed with deep crimson light, and strange symbols rotated across its surface. Inside the sphere, barely visible through the energy field, was the shape of a man. 3,000 years ago we sealed this creature, Vothram began. His voice carried weight that made younger species shiver. We did so because he represented a threat unlike any we had encountered. This is Han Tajin, Warlord of the human 10th Fleet. He must remain sealed. Forever. A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. Humans, that extinct species? The ones whose sun had collapsed into a black hole millennia ago? What possible threat could a dead civilization pose? Counselor Drexel of the Vryn hegemony stood, his massive form towering over most others. Elder, with respect, humanity is gone. Their entire solar system is a void. Why should we fear one frozen specimen? Think of what we could learn from studying his brain patterns, his military knowledge. The humans were fierce warriors before their extinction. Vothram's form darkened, a sign of deep concern among his kind. You do not understand what you propose. Humans are not like other species. They do not surrender. They do not accept defeat. They adapt faster than any race we have ever encountered. Give them a problem, and they will solve it. Give them an enemy, and they will find a way to win. This one, he gestured to the sphere, this one was the worst of them all, a tactical genius. A leader who inspired absolute loyalty, a man who turned losing battles into victories through sheer force of will. Another elder stepped forward. When we sealed him, he had just destroyed an entire battle fleet using only 3 damaged ships and an asteroid field. He killed 17,000 enemy soldiers in a campaign that should have ended in his death. He does not know how to give up. That is why he must never be freed. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Counselor Marish of the Tellian Collective spoke, her voice sharp with irritation. We are not primitives afraid of ghost stories. This human has been frozen for 3,000 years. His civilization is dust. His world is gone. What could he possibly do against the might of the Galactic Council? I propose we transfer him to Research Station Epsilon 7 for study. We vote on this now. The elders tried to protest, but democracy won the day. The vote was counted quickly. 847 voices said yes. Only 3 said no. The decision was made. Han Tajin would be awakened. 2 weeks later, on Research Station Epsilon 7, Chief Scientist Kang Mira stood in the observation room overlooking the unsealing chamber. She was nervous, though she wouldn't admit it to her team. The elders' warnings had unsettled her, but orders were orders. The council wanted this human studied, and her job was to wake him safely. Begin the temporal field dissolution, she commanded. Below in the sealed chamber, technicians activated the sequence. The crimson sphere began to dim. The energy field flickered and sparked as it slowly unwound 3 millennia of temporal stasis. Inside, the figure of a man became clearer. He was tall, muscular, with scars visible even through the energy distortion. His face was hard, carved from stone and violence. The sphere shattered with a sound like breaking glass. The man inside dropped to his knees, then immediately rose to a combat stance. His eyes snapped open, cold and calculating, scanning the room in seconds. He took in the technology, the aliens watching him through the glass, the weapons pointed at him from automated turrets. His first words in 3,000 years were spoken in a voice like gravel. Status report. Where is my fleet? Mira activated the communication system, speaking in the human language that her translation implant provided. Your fleet is gone. You have been in stasis for 3,000 years. Please remain calm. We mean you no harm. Tajin's eyes locked onto hers through the glass. She felt her blood run cold. Those eyes held no fear, no confusion. Only cold, hard assessment. He was already thinking, already planning. My world, he asked. Mira hesitated. I'm sorry. Earth was destroyed approximately 2,900 years ago. Solar collapse. There were no survivors. You are the last human we know of. For just a moment, something flickered across Tajan's face. Pain, perhaps. Loss. But it vanished so quickly that Mira wondered if she had imagined it. His expression hardened into something that made her step back from the glass, despite the thick barrier between them. I see, Tajan said quietly. Then louder, I assume I am a prisoner here? A guest, Mira lied. We wish to learn about human culture to preserve your history. Tajan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're a terrible liar, scientist. But that's all right. I've been in worse prisons than this. Over the next 3 days, they tried to interrogate him. They asked about human military tactics, about Earth's technology, about the wars he had fought. Tajan answered some questions with half-truths and misdirection. Other questions he simply ignored. The whole time he was watching, learning and studying everything around him. On the 4th night, Mira was working late when the alarms began screaming. She ran to the observation room and found it empty. The chamber below was open, the guards unconscious. Tajan was gone. He had studied the station systems through reflection in the observation glass. He had memorized guard rotations by listening to footsteps. He had pretended weakness while testing the strength of his cell's barriers. And when the moment was right, he had acted with brutal efficiency. Station security found him 6 hours later in the data archives. He wasn't trying to escape. He was reading, downloading, learning everything he could about the galaxy that had replaced his own. When they tried to capture him, he disabled 11 armed guards in under 2 minutes using nothing but his hands and their own weapons against them. They cornered him in the communications hub. Surrounded by 50 soldiers with weapons charged and ready, Tajan stood calmly at a console. He had already accessed restricted council files. He had learned the truth. You killed them, he said, his voice carrying deadly calm. Earth's sun didn't collapse naturally. You used an ancient weapon. You committed genocide because you feared human expansion. Mira, watching through cameras, felt her world crumble. It was true. She had found hints in restricted files she wasn't supposed to access. The council had murdered an entire species. Tajan turned to face the camera directly as if he knew she was watching. You asked me what I would do now that my world is gone. I'll tell you. I'm going to remind this galaxy why the elders wanted me sealed forever. I'm going to show you what happens when you awaken a warlord with nothing left to lose. He triggered something on the console. Every restraining bolt on the station unlocked simultaneously. Prisoners held for various crimes across the galaxy suddenly found their cells open. Chaos erupted. In the confusion, Tajan vanished into the station's depths. By the time order was restored 12 hours later, he had stolen a ship and disappeared into the void. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Some things, once awakened, cannot be sealed again. Tajan drifted through the outer rim territories like a ghost for 6 weeks, watching and learning. The stolen scout ship he flew was small enough to avoid attention, but fast enough to escape trouble. He didn't engage in fights. He didn't make himself known. He simply observed a galaxy that had forgotten how to be afraid. What he saw disgusted him. The galaxy was ruled by 7 major species, each controlling vast territories under the Galactic Council's oversight. They called it peace. Tajan called it stagnation. Their military forces were ceremonial parade units that hadn't seen real combat in 2,000 years. Their tactics were textbook maneuvers taught in academies, never tested in actual war. Their soldiers were soft, trained for show rather than survival. He watched a Vryn patrol intercept smugglers near a trade station. The patrol had superior numbers, better weapons, and tactical advantage. They still took 40 minutes to secure 3 unarmed cargo runners because they followed protocol instead of thinking. Any human squad from his era would have finished the job in 5 minutes. On the manufacturing world of Dracon 5, Tajan observed the local garrison during their morning exercises. They moved in perfect formation, their movements synchronized and beautiful, completely useless in actual combat. No one checked corners properly. No one maintained proper spacing for defensive fire. They were dancers, not warriors. The more he watched, the more he understood. 3,000 years of peace had rotted them from within. They had forgotten the fundamental truth that he and every human soldier knew. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is what you fight for, what you maintain through strength and vigilance. Let your guard down and someone will always be ready to take advantage. His opportunity for a closer look came on Terrace 9, a mining colony on the edge of Vryn space. Tajin landed his ship in the lower docks, mixing with the crowds of workers and traders. The colony was a dirty place, filled with species from across the galaxy working in dangerous conditions for minimal pay. He was watching a group of miners return from their shift when he saw it happen. 6 Vryn enforcers surrounded a group of exhausted workers. The enforcers were shouting about quotas, about productivity, about punishments. When one of the workers, a thin creature with multiple arms, tried to explain that the equipment was broken, an enforcer struck him across the face. The worker fell. The others backed away in fear. The enforcers laughed. Tajin felt something cold settle in his chest. He had seen this before, on human worlds during the corporate wars before Earth's unification. Oppression wearing the mask of law and order. He had spent years fighting against exactly this kind of abuse. He moved before he consciously decided to act. Old combat reflexes took over. 4 minutes later, 17 Vryn enforcers lay unconscious or dead in the mining district plaza. Tajin stood in the center, breathing calmly, his stolen baton dripping with alien blood. The workers stared at him in shock and terror. "Leave," he told them quietly. "Security will be here soon." One of the workers, the one who had been struck, stepped forward hesitantly. "Who are you?" Tajin looked at him for a long moment. Someone who remembers when strength meant protecting others, not crushing them. He walked away as sirens began to wail in the distance. By the time security arrived, he was gone, but the station's surveillance had captured everything. Within hours, the footage spread across local networks. Within a day, it reached the galactic news feeds. The galaxy watched a single figure move through armed enforcers like they were standing still. They watched him use their own weapons against them with brutal efficiency. They watched him disappear into the crowds like smoke. The commentators called him a terrorist, a psychopath, a monster. But in the slums and mining colonies and slave markets across the galaxy, people watched and whispered a different word. Hope Tajin needed information. Real information that he couldn't get from public networks. That's how he found himself in the shadow market on Station Corvus, a neutral trading hub where illegal goods and information changed hands daily. He was looking for a data broker when trouble found him instead. Park Suman was running for her life through the market's twisted corridors when she literally crashed into him. She was small, fast, with sharp eyes that took in everything at once. Behind her, 3 hegemony assassins closed in, their weapons already drawn. "Move," she gasped, trying to push past Tajin. Instead, he grabbed her arm and pulled her behind him. The assassins stopped, confused by this interruption. They wore adaptive camouflage armor and carried plasma blades. "Professional killers, walk away," Tajin told them calmly. The lead assassin laughed. "Give us the woman and you live, stranger." Simple choice, Tajin sighed. He was trying to stay under the radar, but some things couldn't be ignored. Last chance. "Walk away," they attacked. It was over in 30 seconds. The first assassin died with his own blade through his throat. The second fell when Tajin crushed his windpipe with a precise strike. The third was smarter and tried to run. Tajin threw a blade with perfect accuracy, dropping him before he reached the corner. Suman stared at him with wide eyes. "You're him, the one from Terrace 9, the human." "I need information," Tajin said, pulling her into a side corridor before more security arrived. "You're a data broker. I saw your tags on the local network. What do you know about pre-collapse Earth?" She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "You just killed 3 hegemony assassins to save me, and you want to talk about ancient history? They'll send more. We should move while we talk." Over the next few hours, hiding in Suman's cramped apartment, she told him what she knew. For 15 years, she had been collecting human artifacts, records, anything she could find about the lost civilization. She believed that humanity's story didn't end with Earth's destruction. There were colony ships, she explained, pulling up holographic displays of old star charts. Earth sent out dozens of them in the centuries before the collapse. Long-range generation ships headed for distant galaxies. The Council says they all failed or were lost, but I don't believe it. The numbers don't add up. Some of them must have survived. Tajin studied the charts, his military mind already calculating possibilities. "Why do you care about dead humans?" Suman looked at him with surprising intensity. "Because my grandmother told me stories before she died. Stories about a colony ship called the Wanderer. She said her ancestors came from Earth generations ago. I don't know if it's true, but I've spent my life trying to find proof. So you might be partly human. Maybe. Diluted over generations, mixed with other species, but maybe. She smiled sadly. When I saw the footage of you fighting, the way you moved, the way you didn't hesitate to protect those workers, I thought that's what my grandmother's stories described. Humans who couldn't stand by and watch injustice. Teijin was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision. I'm going to war against the council. They murdered my species. They built their peace on genocide. If other humans survived out there, they deserve to know the truth. Will you help me? Suman should have said no. It was suicide to fight the Galactic Council. But she looked at this relic from a dead world, this warrior who had nothing left except his principles, and found herself nodding. I'll help. But you need more than information. You need a plan. The Council has billions of soldiers, thousands of warships. How does one human fight that? Teijin smiled, and for the first time since his awakening it was genuine. The same way humanity always fought overwhelming odds. We don't fight fair. We fight smart. We adapt, we endure, and we never ever surrender. He spent the next week in Suman's apartment, learning everything he could about the modern galaxy while planning his next move. He studied the Council's structure, their military deployments, their political divisions. He found the cracks in their seemingly perfect system. When he was ready, he hijacked every major communication channel across 3 sectors. His face appeared on billions of screens simultaneously. He spoke calmly, clearly in a voice that carried absolute conviction. I am Han Teijin, Warlord of the 10th Human Fleet. 3,000 years ago you sealed me because you feared what humanity represented. Then you murdered my entire species because we threatened your comfortable order. You thought us forgotten. You were wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in across countless worlds. I am the last human, or perhaps the first of a new age. Either way, I am your reckoning. The elders warned you to keep me sealed forever. You ignored them. Now you'll learn why they were afraid. I'm coming for you, Council. I'm coming for everyone who thought genocide was acceptable. Choose your response carefully. Surrender, flee, or fight. But know this, someone falls first. The only question is who. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council scrambled to respond. They called emergency sessions. They mobilized fleets. They issued bounties. And in a small apartment on Station Corvus, Teijin and Suman prepared for war. The Galactic Council's response was swift and overwhelming. Within 48 hours of Teijin's broadcast, they mobilized the Vryn hegemony's 5th Armada, 12,000 warships, the largest military deployment in 2 millennia, all sent to capture or kill one human. Fleet Commander Krathnox personally led the Armada from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was a veteran of countless peacekeeping missions, decorated and respected. He had never lost a battle, though in truth he had never fought a real war. None of them had. One human, Krathnox said to his officers during the first briefing. We're using 12,000 ships to hunt one primitive survivor. The Council is overreacting. His tactical officer pulled up Teijin's service record, recovered from ancient Earth archives. Sir, this human destroyed the Kelvar battle fleet at Proxima. 3 ships against 300. He won. That was 3,000 years ago, Krathnox dismissed. Technology has advanced. Tactics have evolved. He's fighting with outdated knowledge against modern systems. This will be over in a week. It was not over in a week. Teijin didn't face the Armada head-on. That would be suicide, and he hadn't survived this long by being stupid. Instead, he did what humans had always done when facing superior force. He changed the rules of engagement. The 5th Armada spread across 6 sectors searching for one small ship. They had sensor networks, communication relays, informant networks. They should have found him in days. Instead, Teijin found them. The first attack came on the Armada's supply convoy near the Helios Nebula. Teijin didn't destroy the ships. He hacked their cargo manifests and rerouted half the supplies to coordinates he leaked to resistance groups across the sector. The convoy captains didn't even know they'd been hit until they arrived at their destination with empty holds. The second attack was more direct. Teijin infiltrated a communication relay station disguised as a maintenance worker. In 30 minutes, he uploaded a virus that made every ship's sensors report ghost contacts. The Armada spent 3 days chasing phantom enemies, burning fuel and creating chaos. The third attack was psychological. Teijin hacked into the Armada's secure command frequency and broadcast old Earth military cadences and war songs. He told stories about human battles, human victories against impossible odds. He described in detail how the Kelvar fleet had died. The broadcasts lasted for hours, playing on every channel impossible to block. Soldiers who had never felt fear began to feel it. They jumped at shadows. They saw threats everywhere. The mighty Fifth Armada was being haunted by one man and his voice. Krathnox was furious, but also, for the first time, concerned. How is he doing this? He's one person with a scout ship. Our technology is superior. Our numbers are overwhelming. Why can't we find him? His intelligence officer had been studying human military history. Sir, I think I understand. Humans called it asymmetric warfare. When you can't win through strength, you win through unconventional means. Make the enemy's advantages work against them. Turn their own systems into weapons. Create confusion and fear. He's not trying to destroy us. He's trying to make us destroy ourselves. She was right. Over the next 2 weeks, the Fifth Armada suffered 3 incidents of friendly fire, 2 accidental collisions, and 1 mutiny on a destroyer where the crew thought their captain had been compromised. Tajin hadn't fired a single shot. Then came Quelon. The fortress world of Quelon was a council stronghold, protected by planetary shields and a defensive grid that could destroy entire fleets. It was considered impregnable. 8,000 warships from the Fifth Armada maintained orbit, using it as their staging base. Tajin attacked with a team of 12. Suman had been recruiting for weeks, finding outcasts and criminals, people with grudges against the council. She found Choi Yunho, a disgraced former galactic marine who had been court-martialed for refusing an order to fire on civilians. He knew the fortress systems, knew the guard rotations, knew the weaknesses. Together with 10 others, they infiltrated Quelon through the lower maintenance tunnels. It took them 3 days to reach the Planetary Defense Control Center. They moved through service corridors, avoided patrols, and eliminated guards silently when necessary. The control center was protected by heavy blast doors, automated turrets, and a garrison of 200 elite soldiers. Tajin's plan was insane. It was also the only one that could work. Yunho overloaded the fortress's secondary power grid, creating a blackout that lasted exactly 90 seconds. In that time, Tajin and his team breached the control center using explosives, fought through the guards in complete darkness using thermal vision, and reached the main console. Suman had 60 seconds to hack the system while Tajin and Yunho held the door against reinforcements. She worked with trembling hands, breaking through security layers that should have taken hours. With 10 seconds left, she cracked it. "I'm in," she shouted. "Do it!" Tajin ordered, dropping 3 guards with precise shots. Suman activated the planetary defense grid, but instead of targeting incoming threats, she targeted the orbiting Fifth Armada. Thousands of cannons that could crack moons turned toward the ships above. Krathnox had 30 seconds of warning. It wasn't enough. The planetary defense system opened fire with the full might of its arsenal. Ships that had seemed invincible were torn apart by weapons designed to defend against invasion fleets. Explosions lit up the night sky like new stars being born. 3,000 ships died in 17 minutes. The rest scattered in panic, fleeing beyond the planet's range. Tajin stood on the fortress wall, watching the burning debris fall through the atmosphere like rain. Suman had set cameras to record it, broadcasting the footage across the galaxy. She made sure everyone could see him, this lone human standing victorious while an armada burned above. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The question spread like wildfire. How did one human do this? How did the mighty Fifth Armada fall to a team of 12 rebels? The answer was simple but terrifying to those who understood. He was human, and humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to fight things bigger and stronger than themselves. They had hunted mammoths with stone spears. They had built empires from nothing. They had reached for the stars from a single small world. Fighting impossible odds wasn't a challenge for them. It was their natural state. In the aftermath, Suman's research network brought her something that changed everything. Buried in the data they had stolen from the fortress was proof, undeniable proof, of what Tajin had suspected. Earth's sun hadn't collapsed naturally. The Council had used an ancient weapon called a stellar collapse array. They had murdered humanity deliberately. Tajin read the reports in silence, his face carved from stone. When he finished, he looked up at Suman and Yunho with eyes that burned like dying stars. "They didn't just destroy my world," he said quietly. "They erased my species because we were inconvenient. Because we asked too many questions. Because we refused to stay in our assigned place in their perfect order. Yunho placed a hand on his shoulder. What do we do now? Taijin stood, his decision made. We give the galaxy something it's been missing. Truth, justice, and a reminder that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible. He hijacked the communication networks again. This time his broadcast reached every inhabited world in council space. He showed them the proof of genocide. He showed them the files documenting the decision to destroy Earth. He showed them that their peaceful council had built its power on the ashes of murder. But he also made an offer, a challenge. I could continue this war in the shadows, Taijin said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute conviction. I could sabotage your ships, assassinate your leaders, tear down your empire piece by piece. But that's not justice. That's just revenge. He paused, letting the galaxy hold its breath. So I'm issuing a formal challenge to the Galactic Council. Send me your champions, your best warriors, your elite soldiers. Face me in single combat where the whole galaxy can watch. Let them see if your mighty empire can defeat one human from a dead world. Let them decide who deserves to rule. His eyes blazed with fierce determination. You wanted to know who falls first? Come find out. I'm waiting. And I'm not going anywhere until someone steps up or you all step down. The transmission ended. Across 1 trillion worlds, beings of every species talked of nothing else. The council was in chaos, divided between those who wanted to accept the challenge and those who wanted to send armies. In the end, pride made the decision for them. They would send champions. They would prove that one human was no match for the galaxy's finest. And Taijin, standing on Quellan with his ragtag team of rebels, smiled. Because they had just taken his bait. Every duel would be broadcast. Every victory would shake the council's legitimacy. Every champion that fell would inspire others to rise. He wasn't just fighting a war. He was starting a revolution. And revolutions didn't need armies. They needed symbols. They needed hope. Who falls first? He had asked. The galaxy was about to find out. The Galactic Council accepted Taijin's challenge with reluctant confidence. They couldn't refuse without appearing weak, and they believed their champions would crush this upstart human. What they didn't understand was that Taijin wasn't just fighting for victory. He was fighting for hearts and minds. Every duel would be broadcast across the galaxy. Every fight would be a show, carefully crafted to demonstrate that the Council's power was an illusion. He was engineering a propaganda war, and each champion was another piece of evidence that the mighty empire was built on nothing but comfortable lies. The first champion stepped forward within days. Kronval, a Vryn berserker standing 8 feet tall with muscles like coiled steel cables. He had won 300 ceremonial duels and killed rivals in 17 honor combats. The Vryn people considered him invincible, their greatest warrior in generations. The duel took place in the arena of judgment on the neutral world of Tarkos. 70 billion beings across the galaxy tuned in to watch. The arena was ancient, a circular platform suspended above a bottomless chasm, forcing combatants to fight with nowhere to retreat. Kronval entered first, roaring his war cry, beating his chest with fists that could crack stone. The crowd of Vryn supporters cheered like thunder. He was a spectacle, a demonstration of raw power and aggression. Taijin walked in quietly, wearing simple combat armor scavenged from his raids. He carried no weapons, while Kronval wielded a massive warhammer that required both hands. The size difference was absurd. The berserker was twice Taijin's mass with reach and strength that seemed overwhelming. You are a dead species walking, Kronval snarled. I will crush your bones and end this embarrassment. Taijin simply nodded. Show me. The berserker charged like a landslide, hammer swinging in devastating arcs. Each blow could have pulverized a small vehicle. Taijin didn't try to block. He moved. 3,000 years ago, human soldiers had learned to fight in every terrain, against every enemy, using every advantage. Against a larger, stronger opponent, you didn't match strength. You used speed, timing, and intelligence. For 6 minutes, Taijin danced around the berserker's attacks, studying his patterns, letting him tire himself. Kronval grew frustrated, swinging wider, putting more power behind each blow. That was the mistake. When the hammer came down in a massive overhead strike, Taijin sidestepped and moved inside the berserker's guard. 3 precise strikes to nerve clusters, learned from human martial arts refined over millennia. Kronval's left arm went numb, his grip weakened. Tajin swept his legs, using the berserker's own momentum against him. Kronval crashed to the ground. Before he could rise, Tajin was on his back, arm locked around his throat. The berserker thrashed with desperate strength, but Tajin held on with perfect technique. 12 minutes after the duel began, Kronval's struggles weakened and stopped. Tajin held for 5 more seconds, then released. The berserker lay unconscious, defeated. Silence filled the arena. Then from the lower sections where workers and common people sat, a cheer began. It spread like wildfire. The invincible champion had fallen. Tajin stood over his defeated opponent and spoke to the cameras broadcasting across the galaxy. Strength without wisdom is just violence. Your champions are strong, but they've forgotten what true warriors know. The fight isn't about size or power. It's about will, adaptation, and refusing to surrender. 2 days later, a woman found Tajin in his temporary quarters on Tarkos. Li Jiwan was tall and lean, with features that mixed human characteristics with something else. She moved like a hunter, every step precise and controlled. My grandmother was from a colony ship called the Dawn Seeker, she said without preamble. Half my DNA is human. The other half is Scythe from my father. I've spent my life caught between 2 worlds, belonging to neither. When I saw you fight, I knew where I belonged. Tajin studied her carefully. Why are you here? To help and to warn you. The second champion is Velshara. She's Sith like my father's people, an assassin who has never failed a contract. She won't fight like Kronval. She'll hunt you. The duel with Velshara was scheduled for the Labyrinth of Krell, a massive complex of corridors, chambers, and traps. Perfect terrain for an assassin. The rules were simple. Enter from opposite sides, survive, and defeat your opponent. No time limit. G1 helped Tajin prepare. She knew scythe hunting techniques, their methods of tracking and ambush. She taught him how they thought, how they moved, how they killed. When the duel began, Tajin entered the labyrinth with careful steps. Velshara was somewhere in this maze, invisible and patient. Hours passed. The galaxy watched through automated cameras placed throughout the complex, but even they struggled to spot the assassin. Tajin didn't try to hunt her. Instead, he created a trap of his own. He found a chamber with only 2 entrances and set up a simple ambush using debris and reflected light. Then he waited, controlling his breathing, his heartbeat becoming as still as stone. 3 hours into the duel, Velshara struck. She dropped from an air vent, blades extended, moving with lethal silence. But Tajin had been listening for the whisper of displaced air. He rolled aside as she landed, her strike missing by inches. The fight that followed was brutal and fast. Velshara was faster than any human, her reflexes enhanced by generations of selective breeding. But Tajin was unpredictable, using techniques she had never encountered. He feinted with human boxing, struck with human martial arts, and fought with a creativity that her assassin training couldn't predict. 4 hours and 17 minutes after entering the labyrinth, Tajin cornered Velshara in a dead-end corridor. She was wounded, her perfect technique finally broken by his unconventional style. She tried one last desperate attack. Tajin caught her wrist, twisted, and delivered a strike that sent her crashing unconscious to the floor. He stood over her, breathing hard, covered in cuts and bruises. You were trained to fight targets who think like you. Humans don't think like anyone else. That's our strength. 2 more champions fell in the weeks that followed. Each duel was different, showcasing different aspects of human capability. Against a heavily armored Krellian warrior, Tajin won through endurance, outlasting his opponent in a battle that stretched for 6 hours. Against a Tellurian swarm fighter who used multiple drones, Tajin hacked the control system mid-battle and turned the drones against their master. But it was the 5th champion that changed everything. The Council unleashed Axiom 7, an AI-driven combat platform designed specifically to counter human tactics. It had access to every military engagement humans had ever fought, every strategy they had ever used. It could predict human behavior with 98% accuracy and adjust its combat style in real time. The galaxy expected Tajin's first loss. After all, how do you fight a machine that knows everything about how humans fight? The duel took place in an open arena. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. Axiom 7 appeared as a sleek humanoid machine, moving with inhuman precision. It attacked immediately, using strategies copied from human military history. For 5 minutes, Tajin was on the defensive, barely blocking strikes that came from angles the AI calculated perfectly. It was faster, stronger, and knew every technique he tried to use before he used it. The crowd watched what seemed like the inevitable defeat of the human champion. Then Tajin did something unexpected. He started singing an old Earth song, something his mother had taught him as a child. The lyrics were in a language dead for 3,000 years. He sang while fighting, his voice carrying across the arena. The AI hesitated, confused. This wasn't combat behavior. This wasn't logical. What tactical purpose did singing serve? While it calculated, Tajin switched styles completely. He abandoned all formal martial arts and started fighting like a street brawler, wild and unpredictable. He threw sand in the AI's sensors. He kicked out its knee joint with a move no trained fighter would use. He fought dirty, fought creative, fought in ways that made no tactical sense. The AI couldn't predict him anymore. Its accuracy dropped to 70%, then 50, then 30. It was trying to fight a rational opponent, but Tajin had abandoned rationality for pure human chaos. When the AI paused for a critical recalculation, trying to update its behavioral models, Tajin struck. He ripped open its chest panel and tore out the primary processor with his bare hands. Axiom 7 collapsed. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Tajin held up the processor, speaking to the cameras. This machine knew everything about how humans fight. But it couldn't understand why we fight. It couldn't understand that sometimes humans don't follow logic. We follow feeling, instinct, and the sheer stubborn refusal to give up. You can't program that. You can't predict it. That's what makes us human. The 6th champion challenged him the next day, but mid-preparation, something happened that would change the entire conflict. Kim Doyen, a mid-level council diplomat, secretly contacted Tajin through Suman's network. "We need to talk," the message said. "Not all of us support this madness. Some of us want peace." They met in secret, Tajin taking every precaution. Doyen was nervous but sincere. "A faction within the council wants to negotiate. We're horrified by what we learned about Earth's destruction. But the hardliners, led by Supreme Counselor Drexel, they're preparing something catastrophic." "The stellar collapse array," Tajin said quietly. Doyen nodded. "They're planning to use it again. Multiple systems, billions of lives to force you to surrender. They'll blame it on you, say it was the cost of your rebellion." Tajin felt cold rage settle in his chest. They were willing to commit more genocide to hide their first genocide. He defeated the 6th champion in a match that lasted 8 minutes, his mind elsewhere planning. The 7th and final champion challenged him 3 days later, but by then Tajin had made his decision. The duels were a distraction. The real war was about to begin. Suman's intelligence network confirmed the worst fears in the middle of the night. Multiple sources reported unusual activity around ancient weapons installations scattered across council space. The stellar collapse array was being activated, targeting 12 inhabited systems with a combined population of 47 billion beings. Tajin stood in the command center they had established on a liberated station, studying the data with cold fury. Around him, his growing rebellion had assembled. Jiwan was there, along with Yunho, Suman, and dozens of others who had joined their cause. What had started as one man's vendetta had become a movement. "They're going to murder billions," Yunho said quietly, staring at the projections. "And they'll blame it on us. Say it was the cost of stopping your rebellion." Tajin's jaw tightened. "They're desperate, afraid. The duels showed the galaxy that the Council isn't invincible. Now they're trying to restore fear through mass murder." He turned to face his assembled team. These weren't soldiers. They were mechanics, data specialists, former prisoners, outcasts. They had courage but no formal training. Against the Council's military might, they were nothing. But Tajin had learned long ago that conventional thinking lost wars. "We're going to stop them," he announced. "We're going to assault Council Prime Station and destroy the array before they can activate it." Silence fell. Council Prime was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. It had shields that could withstand fleet bombardments. It had automated defense systems that could destroy thousands of ships. It had a permanent garrison of 50,000 elite troops. Assaulting it with their forces was suicide. "I know what you're thinking," Tajin continued. "It's impossible." But so was defeating Kronval. So was taking Quellen. So was surviving this long. Humans specialized in doing impossible things. "Let me show you how." Before they could plan further, an unexpected message arrived. The elders, those ancient beings who had warned against unsealing Tajin, requested a meeting. They came in person, their forms shimmering at the edge of reality, appearing in the station's central chamber. Elder Vothram spoke first. We warned them. They did not listen. Now the galaxy pays the price for their arrogance. Tejan faced them without fear. Are you here to seal me again? No, another elder said. We are here to help. The stellar collapse array draws power from a central nexus hidden in subspace beneath Council Prime. These are the coordinates. A stream of data flowed into their systems. Destroy it and the weapon becomes inert. Why help me now? Tejan asked. Vothram's form pulsed with something like sadness. Because we were wrong. Not wrong to seal you, but wrong to give up on humanity. Your species was dangerous, yes, but also magnificent. You were the only race we ever encountered that truly understood what it meant to fight for something greater than yourselves. The galaxy needs that spirit. It has become weak, complacent. Perhaps one human can remind them what they have forgotten. The elder paused. And because you are not fighting for revenge, we see it in your actions. You could have killed your defeated champions. You did not. You could have targeted civilians. You did not. You fight for justice, not vengeance. That is worthy of support. They gave him more than coordinates. They provided detailed schematics of Council Prime's defenses, bypass codes for certain systems, and something else. A genetic archive from Earth preserved in temporal stasis. Seeds, DNA samples, embryos. The building blocks of humanity saved by the elders before Earth's destruction. If you survive, Vothram said, perhaps humanity deserves a second chance. Tejan assembled his attack force. Hundreds had answered the call. Beings from across the galaxy inspired by his broadcasts. They weren't an army, but they had courage and motivation. Most importantly, they believed the plan was insane. They would use the chaos of a multi-pronged assault to slip a small team through the defenses. Taijin, Jiwan, Yunho, Suman, and 6 others would infiltrate the station and reach the subspace nexus while the rest created distractions. The assault on Council Prime began at dawn, station time. Attack ships swept in from multiple vectors drawing defensive fire. Explosions lit up space as automated systems tore through their forces. The casualties were horrific, but they kept coming, wave after wave, sacrificing themselves to create openings. Taijin's team entered through a maintenance tunnel that the Elders' codes temporarily disabled. They moved fast through the station's guts, encountering resistance at every turn, firefights in narrow corridors, running battles through cargo bays. Each fight cost them something. One of their team fell to a security drone. Another was killed holding a blast door so the others could advance. They kept moving, pushing deeper into the station while outside. Their allies died buying them time. Yunho took a plasma bolt to the chest, defending Jiwan from a surprise attack. He fell hard, blood spreading across the deck. Tejan knelt beside him, but Yunho pushed him away. Go, Yunho gasped. Finish this. Make it mean something. He died holding that corridor, giving them the seconds they needed to reach the next section. Tejan forced himself to keep moving, to honor that sacrifice by completing the mission. They reached the subspace access point, a chamber where reality itself seemed to bend. The nexus was visible through a viewing port, a swirling mass of energy in a pocket dimension. Destroying it would require someone to enter the subspace field and manually overload the core. It was a one-way trip. Jiwan stepped forward. I'll do it. No, Tejan said. Yes. She met his eyes with fierce determination. You're the symbol, the inspiration. You need to survive this. I'm just a hybrid who never belonged anywhere. Let me belong to this. Let me save those billions. Before he could argue, alarms screamed. Council forces had found them. Hundreds of soldiers were converging on their position. Suman was already at the terminal trying to hack through the final security layer. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds, her hands shaking. I can get the door open, but you need to hold them off. 2 minutes. Tejan and the remaining team members set up a desperate defense at the corridor entrance. The council forces came like a wave. He fought with everything he had, every skill learned in 3,000 years of life and war. Bodies fell. His team fell. But they held. G1 entered the subspace field as soon as Suman got the door open. Through the viewing port, they watched her reach the core, her body starting to tear apart from the dimensional stress. She looked back once, smiled, and triggered the overload. The explosion was contained in subspace, but the shockwave rippled through normal space. The stellar collapse array installations across the galaxy went dark simultaneously, their power source destroyed. 47 billion lives saved. But the cost was devastating. Taijin's team was down to just him and a critically wounded Suman. Council forces surrounded them. Supreme Counselor Drexel appeared via hologram, his face twisted with rage. "You've won nothing, human. Your rebellion ends here. You die. Your movement dies with you and order will be restored." Taijin looked at him with cold contempt. "You still don't understand. This was never about me." He triggered one final hack that Suman had prepared. Every secret council file, every classified document, every hidden crime spanning thousands of years, released simultaneously to every public network in the galaxy. The truth laid bare for everyone to see. Genocides, slave operations, false flag attacks. The Council's carefully maintained image of benevolent leadership crumbled in an instant. Species after species saw the evidence of crimes committed against them. The lies that held the galactic order together disintegrated. "The galaxy knows the truth now," Taijin said. "What happens next is up to them, not you." Before Drexel could respond, something unexpected happened. Council guards in the room lowered their weapons. Across the station, soldiers stood down. They had seen the files too. They understood what they had been fighting for. Drexel raged and threatened, but his power was gone. The Council fractured as species declared independence or demanded justice. The galaxy descended into chaos, but it was honest chaos. The comfortable lies were dead. Taijin carried Suman from Council Prime as the station fell into confusion. She died in the medical bay 3 days later, her last words a whisper. "Did we win?" "Yes," Taijin told her, though he wasn't sure what victory looked like anymore. The elders found him a week later, standing on the observation deck of a ship at the edge of known space. He was looking at stars, thinking about Earth, about everyone he had lost. "You could rule," Vothram said. "The galaxy is without leadership. Many would follow you." Taijin shook his head. "I'm a warlord, a weapon, not a builder. The galaxy needs to find its own path forward without someone like me forcing them." "What will you do?" Taijin was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured to the genetic archive the elders had given him. "You said humanity deserves a second chance. I'm going to find a world, somewhere far from here. I'm going to plant these seeds and see what grows." The elders provided coordinates to a planet in a distant galaxy, perfect for human life. Taijin took the archive in a small ship. He transmitted one final message to the galaxy before leaving. "I am Han Taijin. I was sealed as a monster and awakened as a ghost. You asked who falls first. The answer was your lies, your tyranny, your certainty that might makes right. I don't know if I'm the last human or the first of a new age, but I know this. Wherever humans rise, we rise defiant. We rise unbroken, and we never ever kneel." The transmission ended. Taijin set course for the distant world, carrying the seeds of humanity's future. Decades later, on a green world circling a yellow star, children played in fields that had once been empty. They were human, grown from the genetic archive, raised by automated systems Taijin had programmed with everything he knew about Earth, about human culture, about what it meant to be human. He watched them from a distance, an old man now. He had lived long enough to see humanity reborn, long enough to teach the first generation about their heritage, long enough to plant the seeds of a civilization that would perhaps do better than the first. As the sun set over the new Earth, Taijin sat beneath a tree he had planted from seeds 3,000 years old. He thought about his original world, his lost comrades, the battles he had fought. He thought about Yunho, Jiwon, Sumin. They had given everything so humanity could have another chance. His eyes closed for the last time with a smile on his face. The last warlord of old Earth had finally found peace, and in the fields nearby, human children laughed and played, carrying forward a legacy they didn't fully understand yet. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Some things once thought dead can rise again. Some spirits cannot be crushed, and humanity in all its stubborn, defiant glory would endure, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because they refused to surrender, refused to accept defeat, and always found a way forward. The story of Earth's last warlord became legend, but the story of Earth itself was just beginning again.